if it's not trackable, it's not scalable, right? And so this is, I've got a few superpowers, and one of those superpowers is I am a visionary and an implementer. I can think very big and very future focused, and I love launching projects and businesses, but I can get super granular and system focused as well. And because of that, I can cast a big vision and then build the system with the trackable metrics to make sure it works. Because there's nothing worse than running down a path with an idea and a gut feeling, which is great because that can motivate you to make a lot of good decisions. But you gotta refine the system. And so I track everything. And I'll share some metrics because I think this is fascinating, right? Like we're talking about connections, which is a little bit fluffy. Like it can feel not very tangible, right? Because we're just talking about relationships and people. But this is how it turns into metrics, right? In January of this year, I conducted 52 first meetings or connection meetings, right? So 52 connection meetings in January. I made 98 introductions or connections following those meetings to support the people I met with. So it's about 2 per meeting. I received 27 inbound connections. 7 of those inbound connections were super qualified leads, and 2 of those turned into paid clients just in the month of January. That doesn't carry over to what they've turned into long. And so we're tracking everything. Like I'm looking at every metric, every meeting. How do I optimize it? What's the right meeting length time? Like everything has to be trackable in a system. Otherwise, I don't want to do it because it's got to be scalable.
From a technical perspective, how does that tracking actually work? Like you've got the Aura ring that's convenient. You just put it on and it does the rest. But when it comes to inbound connections, it's like I reached out to you on Instagram. I'm sure you've got people reaching out to you through all sorts of channels. How do you congregate all these different metrics in this sort of loosey-goosey social world?
Yeah, so this is our 2025 AI project, right? We're like knee deep in it right now. And so I've got the dashboards and everything's manual right now to really dial in the things that are important to track and the things that are vanity metrics. And so we've been doing it with the CRM, which does pretty good at some of it, but not all of it. And I've been in a few CRMs testing which reports and dashboards are best. And so now we are creating an AI powered CRM solution that tracks how many new contacts we had, where they came from, whether it was a direct connection. We're tracking size of connection. We're tracking throughput. We're tracking how many connections deep people are. We're tracking connection tiers. There's some really cool stuff coming because we're just geeking out on it. Because I shared in the presentation, I have this Power of One moment. This is crazy to me. And I didn't even get to the beginning. I shared we closed this $30,000 book deal, which was great, phenomenal client. I can't wait for their book to come out. Such a cool story. And I went 6 connections back to track how I got to this person. And I still wasn't even to the first connection. That was just as much as fit on the slide. And so now it really got me scratching my head. Damn, I want to be able to know that. I want to know okay, this 50th connection in turned into a client. In between this client and the 50 connections, it was 77 podcasts, 6 events, 800 connections, and whatever else, because that's super cool to me. And so right now it's manual. And for the average listener that's just going to scale up their network, your CRM will be great. The metrics you're tracking will be great. But you got to remember, we're doing this at 10 times probably what you'll do. And so now we're really leaning into AI to help us build dashboards and metrics to track it all and to systematize it all in an ultra scalable way. And so my goal is to compress the time to follow up to 1/10 of what it is now. And so that will impact our ability to make more connections, do more follow-up. So active project, it is a problem as you scale it up. Again, for the average listener, a person just growing their network, not super critical.
That's really interesting. What's in the engineering behind that? Are you using APIs through ChatGPT, or I've been trying to build mini versions of this for tracking analytics and stuff like that, and I'm just kind of scratching the surface. So when you say you're using AI to generate this system, what does that look like?
Yeah, so I've got 6 partners right now exploring different ways to make this a reality, and we're going to figure out which one's best. And it's probably going to be a collaboration in there. And so I've got a guy who does like really cool AI things in the sales and content creation world. And so he's exploring like how we could build a standalone dashboard CRM for this that solves this problem and is duplicatable. We've got a CRM partner that we're looking at that we're already in, but we're looking at some like additions and APIs. I've got a funnel automation expert looking at how we could automate some of the follow-up metrics. And so we're just like, I'm really leaning on the brain power in my network right now to figure out like, I want it to be such a simple solution because it's a very simple system. Nothing about the system is complicated. And so whatever we design has to match that. Like it has to be so stupid simple. It's no different than my connection group. Like it's just real people, real connections. There's no other fluff. And so the output will have to be that. So I'm just tapping into the brain power, man. Like I've got amazing people. I'm just going to let them be amazing. And then we'll cherry pick the things that work. Hopefully in the next 30 days, we'll be in beta on something to figure out if we can really turn this into something, really interesting.
Yeah, that sounds super cool. Are you familiar with Michael Lennington?
The name sounds familiar.
12-week year.
Yeah. Okay, that's why.
Yeah. I just had him on. He was doing. He's kind of similar. He's also doing. He's got lightningdraft.com. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
no,
similar kind of thing. Yeah, definitely. I can connect you through. I mean, I just did a podcast with him yesterday. I released it today, but
awesome.
But yeah, he also, I reached out to him on Instagram, and that's how I got a hold of him.
Hey, can I give you? Let me give you another AI thing since we're on AI because I think it's fascinating. So I had a challenge from a guy. You'll love this, and you'll geek out on it. And then I did it, and it was fascinating. I had a challenge. We were talking. It was like our 6th follow-up meeting from just like connections and adding value to each other's worlds. We've done amazing stuff together already. And he said, hey, I've been playing with GPT to build a calculator to show the value of using my system. And I was like, that's fascinating. And so he showed me what he designed he's in the podcast world, right? So he helps people launch and scale podcasts. And so he was showing like, if you launch this many listeners, this much growth, this much revenue, blah, 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 blah. And so I went to GPT. 45 minutes later, I output one on tapping into the power of your network, where you go in, how big's your network? How many referrals do you get? What's your average value for a client? And what's your average close rate? What's your average value for a client? You hit calculate, and it outputs how much value you're actually getting out of your network and how much you could get. And it's a great tool to position future sales. And all of that was done in 45 minutes with the GPT. It gives you the code. You just copy and paste the code in your website. So just a little nugget for the listeners, if you are not creatively thinking about how to abuse the AI right now, like that calculator probably was like a $5,000 project 24 months ago.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. And it's getting better at such a rapid rate. So I'm trying to stay plugged in, and it really helps having these conversations. I love hearing how other people are implementing. So I wanted to circle back to one of your big goals that you mentioned earlier, the 1 million connections. I'm curious, how do you even track that? Like, and how's your progress been so far?
Yeah, so it is part of what we're trying to visualize, right? Like I know who I've connected with who and who's connected with who, but I don't know the next tier. And so I know like we'll hit it just somewhere, but I won't be able to benchmark it yet. And so I am facilitating a connection group that's a little more trackable because it's a group of people helping people. And so we're going to start tracking that so that we can actually see how many connections are being traded in the group and how, what that looks like. So we're just trying to get this like idea of the core focus. But I liked 1 million because 1 million's really double that, right? So 1 million connections is really like there's 2 people involved. So it's really 2 million. And so when you think about like 2 million people collaborating, like I can't even fathom the impact that has in the world because we're talking jobs, incomes, marriages, relationships, best friends, partnerships, income, nonprofit donate, like it's trillions of dollars in economy. It's probably tens of millions impact in actual tangible other relationships. Because if one partnership connection succeeds and both companies have to scale, we're talking about new employees all making more money, which is more and so like it's just a number that's big enough that makes me think about like, damn, like we could really move the needle and impact so many people. And so it's so far out there that it forces me to optimize my life to chase that vision.